Okay. Well, we're a little after 4, so I think we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll keep watching the waiting room. I'm solo today, without my sort of normal partner in crime. So usually we have a speaker and a bouncer to sort of make sure everyone's getting in. But I think I can keep an eye on everything, and we'll be all right. So welcome everyone. I'd see a few familiar faces. It's kind of fun. We've been doing this all summer and developing. There's some regulars, which is kind of nice for an online thing that feels a little impersonal sometimes. To be like, hey, we have regulars. There's names that pop up frequently. So hello to you, and then definitely some new folks as well. So hello to everyone who's maybe joining for the first one of these, and maybe someone who knows Ruth and wants to check in on what she's been up to for the last week or so. So my name is Derek Ham, and I live here in Matfield Green, Kansas, and am one leg of the Tallgrass artist residency stool that has at least 3 legs and maybe like 17 legs, depending on how you look at it. So normally Kelly Yarborough would be here. She's sort of our founder and guiding light. But alas, she had to work this afternoon at one of her other sort of occupations. And so I'm here. My wife, Catherine, also does stuff with the residency. Bill and Julia McBride host people in Matfield Station, where you see Ruth coming from there with the lovely bookshelf in the background and all of the fun things to find there. And then we're a program of the Kansas Creative Arts and Industries Commission, which is kind of the Kansas NEA funding source. So very grateful to them for all that they do to make the program possible. Yeah, and really excited that you're all here to check things out. Ruth is our 8th and final artist of the summer. So we've had 8 different folks out for 10 days each. The plan normally is that then everyone kind of reconvenes for a group exhibition and for some talks in October, when it's really nice and there's campfires and there's um, you know late night beverages and all sorts of good socializing and things that happen. This year we decided we weren't going to go too far into planning that, not knowing what would happen. So what we're hoping to do is maybe reschedule that for the spring and have it kind of function as a kickoff to next year's program. So stay tuned if you're interested in maybe making the trip up. If it turns out that Ruth is a good, I think she needs to be on the Matfield Green Tourism Board. She can really sell the place. So yeah, if something looks interesting, you'd say, I'd like to come up. Uh, we'd love to have you. And so watch for something later next spring, maybe April, May is what we're tentatively shooting for. So I promised to stop talking pretty quickly here. So I'll turn it over to Ruth to hear a little bit about her work and what she's been up to this week. And just from the images and from talking with her a little bit, there's some really great stuff. So we'll hear from her for a bit. And then if at any point you think of questions as we're going along, feel free to put them in the chat and I can watch for those. Or when she's done talking, turn off your mute for a second and feel free to chime in yourselves. So Ruth, with that, take us away.
All right. I'd like to say hello to everyone. Some of you I haven't met, but I have some friends and coworkers that are here, and my son Asher is here, and Sean, a past resident, an artist friend, Claire, my neighbor and friend, Tanya, and my good friend, Margaret. So thank you of those who I do know for coming, and thank you for those that I haven't met yet for coming. I am an artist from Oklahoma, and I applied to this residency program and was so excited to be selected and had just had the best week. So I have prepared kind of a slideshow of work and experiences. So I'm going to try. I've never done this share screen. So let's see. I'm going to try this. Okay, I think it's working. I've never done this before. Is it looking, it's working? Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so this is the work that I applied to the residency on, and this is sort of my current work. These are a little bit larger scale, maybe 35 by 35, and these are mixed media and caustic work. So that's kind of what I've been doing the last, I don't know, maybe year and a half. So these are a combination of block prints, Xerox transfers of drawings, and then oil paint. So that's a little background. Let's see. And this is also, I was kind of joking with Derek that this is my year of the Flint Hills. I was asked to put a few things in the Flint Hills Field Journal for 2020, so I was so excited about that. Even though the Symphony in the Flint Hills was canceled this year, like everything else, the journal is so beautiful, and this one was about stone. So this really kind of primed me for my experience here in the Flint Hills, learning more about the stone from reading the field journal, kind of tuning into something that maybe you don't get whenever you're enamored by the hills or whatever. So this is another page of the journal. Just background work. So my plan and kind of greatest dream coming out here was to work with the natural pigments found in the area, which was a plan not knowing what the abundance of that would be, or where I would find it, or what I would find. So I was pleasantly surprised the first morning I was here, kind of went on a sunrise walk out to the creek that's on the premises here at the station, and found all of these beautiful clays. So clay is ideal for paint making because you can extract the pigment really easily. So this is sort of just like a little key. I don't know if it's a key, just samples of my kind of pigment fun research. And then the image on the right, the first couple of days I just sat in the creek at sunrise, which was so nice, and just used the raw pigment just with my fingertips, and just kind of rubbed it into some panels that I had prepared for this week. So that was such a lovely experience of place, which is what this residency I think is all about. So here is the creek at Matfield Station where I'm staying, and you can see the layers. And these are, you can find so many colors in this little area. So there's this little video of this like little tiny bit of green. So I don't know, you kind of tune in on looking, and I kind of got like, you know, you like zeroed in on just like the tiny things really quickly once I got here. So this is quite literally making color and art from place. And I don't know how many of you have been to Matfield Station, but this is a map that is found here. And this shows all of the trails and walking paths that are kind of dotted with sculptures and just picturesque views and grasshoppers and native plants. And it's just a really beautiful area of prairie restoration. So I spent a lot of the time here, as all of the residents do, just kind of walking these paths every day and doing sunrise and sunset at different spots. So that's so nice. This is kind of maybe the second day I was here, I got into doing the studies with the pigments that I collected. And this is a stone bridge that is found on the property. And these I don't know if I even have the language for it without taking better notes, but you know, it's like the keystone holds the whole thing together, and it's made from stone found here in the Flint Hills. So this just felt like a really lovely kind of connection of the shape and the tones and colors, and then the clay from the creek. So this is sort of the study work that I got started, just kind of pulling out these really subtle tones of color, just with my fingerprints, and kind of playing with different binders for the pigment, which I'll get into. So I did a few landscapes, just painted with my fingers, landscapes of the hills with the hills. So these are just small studies with using just the powdered pigment and a little bit of water, and then sort of a natural glue, like a paste glue. This was a little study using egg yolk. So this would be an egg tempera method where I mixed egg yolk with the powdered clay that I just crushed up with my fingers. So I didn't really intend on finger painting the whole time, but I did a lot of sort of these primitive color studies. And here's a side-by-side of two of the color studies. And it's just so funny, the serendipitous things that happen when you kind of tune in and spend some time. And I watched the sunrise a few times from this sort of drainage ditch, and this ray of sun would kind of like come up and just like shoot through this tunnel. And so when I was doing this color study on the right, I thought of the photo that I'd taken that morning. And it's just interesting that just the way the colors of the place just kind of tell you what they just sort of define themselves. So I really liked the connection between the light and the earth in these two side-by-side images. So here are some more images of playing with the pigments, kind of in progress. So the works on the left, I added wax to, which I have, let's see. Okay, so this is some process photos of the encaustic process. So this is just the raw pigment that I put with water and my fingertips. And then on the far left, I'm brushing the wax on. So when you brush it on, it's sort of rough. But it's kind of a meditative process, as all of my work is very meditative. And then this little video of the egg yolk. Even the egg felt related to the work in some way. And this is an egg that I used for the binder in some of the paint, which came from one of my chickens that I live with. And then kind of the magic in this encaustic process is the heat gun for this particular method, because it fuses the pigment with the wax and kind of lets the color come through. So I really love working like this. It just feels like it's just like earth and heat and just so tactile. I really, really enjoy the process of image making in this way. So as I kind of spent the week doing these color studies, this kind of language developed just out of walking around, looking at every little thing. So I did this study on the left, and then I was out the next day, and I'd stopped at a creek in Bazaar and just pulled over and was looking at the rocks, and started finding all these little fossils, which was a very odd experience because I felt like I wasn't expecting them, and they were sort of like directly out of the drawing that I had made earlier in the day. So it kind of felt like just that serendipity of when you're traveling and happy and making work. And it kind of solidified this language that I kept returning to throughout the week as I made the work. So these were the little fossils from the creek, and this just made, I don't know, just really blew my mind. I just think they're so interesting and beautiful and not something I expected. And it kind of brings together this feeling of this grassland. Whenever you watch the sunset, it's like watching it over the ocean, something not to be missed. So to find these, ancient fossils of the ocean here in the grassland kind of speaks of the, ancient history of this Kansas region and the specialness of it. So finding these kind of helped shape this language that I was working with all week. And they kind of mimic the visuals of like the hay bales and the cattle brands. So I don't know, it all just kind of goes just perfect. And the wheels, I don't know, it just feels just perfect. So this was sort of later in the week, kind of developing these symbols, this kind of like meditative, obsessive, and these are all done with the clay that I got from the creek. And driving around this part of the country, there are so many of these kind of like portal type things, and they appear in so many different ways. On the left is an image from Matfield, and these are found throughout the property, which would be Bill, the owner of the property, I believe, has put these up kind of a sculpture around. So again, this is kind of like the language of the place, kind of coming with these portals. And this cemetery is down the road, and I remember driving by this maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it just grabbing me, the beautiful metal work, and at sunset it was just really pretty. And I kind of felt the continuation of this like arched language in the piece that I did on the right. I did 4 of those when I first got here, and it's kind of like this arching thing. There's 2 more of those, and that's sort of it's like my recent work has kind of had these themes, and I kind of did a warm-up when I first got here, doing something familiar that I had been doing before I got here to kind of bridge the gap between being at home and being in this place. So on the far left is the Clement Stone Bridge, and I just ran into this when I was out driving. In the middle slide is from this barbed wire display at the Historical Society in Cottonwood Falls, and it was so interesting to just see these lines and just the subtleties of barbed wire. And there was a lot. This is just one little panel, and then a view from the deck. So again, this is kind of solidifying this language of shapes and lines and curves that I responded to coming here. So this is, I just kind of spent the week working in the pigments, and then going out and exploring, and working, going out and exploring. So I really enjoyed the process of it all kind of coming to life. That's another study. And this is some images of Matfield. It's so easy to romanticize being here, but it really, really was absolutely wonderful and beautiful, and just the best sort of time. So this is sort of the culmination of the week. I have a habit in my work of making these big sort of montages of the kind of like obsessive thing that comes out when I start working. So this is just kind of a view of the whole week here assembled. And this, my friend Margaret came to visit and took this picture of me on the left, and on the right was this little tiny heart rock that I found, which it's very hard not to romanticize this place, but it was just a wonderful week, and I was so happy to be here. And I think that's my last slide. Yep, that's my last slide. Let's see. Okay.
Thanks
So
so much.
I
Yeah.
guess that's all. I mean, I could say a lot more, but that's the gist.
Well, yeah, I mean, if there are questions, just I mean, yeah, there's so much work from the week and things to sort of take in there. So if people have questions at this point, I'd be happy to entertain some of those. And then yeah, if you have more to say and want to go on, that's fine as well. But are there any initial questions just while things are fresh in people's minds?
I have a small question.
Yes.
Well, I guess I don't know if it's a small question, but okay, so I'm new to this whole group thing, and my instructor is finding new ways for us to get into art and finding things that are outside of the box we don't normally may not normally reach us. So this is how I got here. I think it's pretty cool though. Thanks for sharing everything. I was just wondering what the feel was like the whole time of you playing with it. What was your feelings like? What was the energy like?
Waking up here, I made sure that I woke up with the sun every day and kind of went to bed early. So I really followed the like sunrise, sunset sort of schedule. And so the energy of the day just kind of sets itself. I had a really interesting little like weather 9-pack of days because there were colder days and really hot days. So I kind of felt like the energy each day was sort of defined by the weather and how the sunrise was that morning, and that kind of like let you know what you're going to be doing that day. If it was colder, I stayed inside and made more work.
You kind of flow with the nature of it then.
Yeah, so every day was sort of this like, what is this day? What's comfortable to do today? And so yeah, the energy out here, while it is so picturesque and beautiful, like sky and land, there's a lot of noise from the train, and the grasshoppers just kind of launch themselves at you. The rocks are hard, so there's such a mix of energies of like soft and hard and loud and quiet. So it's a lot of stimulus for being
peaceful space,
hill country. Yeah,
that's cool. That's very cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question, if I can.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ruth. That was a really, really great talk. It was so awesome to see. After overlapping with you, it was really awesome to see what you ended up working on. I have a question about, I guess, maybe some of the differences of the work that you ended up producing. You've got the collections, like the lexicon and the mark making, and just the way you've kind of archived materials and forms. And then you have the other pieces that look a little more architectural, and it reminded me of like Indonesian temples. It's like the organic form kind of moving up. And I think I'm just wondering about sacredness between those two things, that it's like you're examining architecture of all kinds. You've got this like miniature architecture in the fossils, and then you're creating an architecture otherwise. So is there a relationship to that, to those things, and maybe an idea of sacredness?
As I'm thinking of it now, it's all sort of meditative, and those, I call them towers. They're almost a way, it's almost a way to sort of center myself. And then the little like collecting work is almost like what I can do after I've been centered in a way. And I've done collecting projects over the years. I haven't done as many, in the last maybe 10 or something. So I almost kind of see those tower forms as a way to kind of like ease my frazzled mind in some ways. And I kind of think of those as a series of doorways. So you're like in a doorway and you're wanting to go and like change your scenery or change your feeling. And then so you go into another one and then it's still the same. And then you go into another one and it's still the same. So I kind of do those as it is sort of a temple, but it's also like kind of a search for calm and a search for a stopping place of this madness of going through like a door to a door to a door. And then once you're done exploring like your own frazzled energy, then you have this sort of like tower to rest in that's kind of been like braided and layered. So I do see it like quite different in character from the little tick marks. And I almost see making work like that that's a study or like the little tiny things as like something only possible in the luxury of time, because that's not something in my daily kind of run around that I feel like to get into that mind space. I think I really have to have more time or something because it feels frivolous. And I think that's the best part about this residency is having so many days to kind of like drop into a place where you can be frivolous with your time and just make work that you might not at home in your home studio, like in your studio or with your daily life stuff.
Ruth, a comment. I'm glad to see an Okie as an artist.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Oklahoma City and have a graduate degree from OU. So I'm hoping we can meet sometime.
Oh yeah.
But maybe you've answered this and maybe it's referred to in the information about your art. But what you did at Matfield Green, was that a real departure from what you do back home, or was that just a continuation of working with the pigments and those things?
I would say there are elements of departure, but it's also things that I've done maybe that I haven't recorded in recent history. So in a way, it's sort of, anyone that's known me for a really long time has seen these little obsessive little lines of things I've done, series of like teeth paintings with this kind of ordered way of just obsessively repeating. I've done actually quite a few bodies of work like that, but I don't think I referenced them, in any public way in a long time. But the encaustic work that I got started here is something I'm going to go home and finish working on, and it will probably appear as less of a departure once I have it finished. But so yeah, I would say it was like maybe 50% departure. So yeah.
One quick question: were the fossils that you found in the creek, were those easy to find, or what was it like panning for gold, or did you just go down there and scoop them up?
No, it took a lot of. I just spent hours just kind of zoned out, just looking through little gravel piles, and within that were little bits of clay, pigment. So I think my eyes just kind of tuned in. And I kind of felt like I can't believe that I can even see these because some of them were so small. So it was a lot of hours of just looking at on my knees in the rain, like a creek, just looking and looking and looking and looking. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a question from Paula in the chat here. If you collected pigments to take home and will you continue working with them? Which we were kind of talking about that dynamic the other day of it feeling like, is it okay to take things from here and that sort of thing? So I wondered if you could talk about that a little.
Yeah, I am a little conflicted. Do I take from here or do I leave it, make with what I've collected and, put it all back on my way out of town. So I think I would like to keep sample, small samples and keep working with these and hopefully bring them back to I don't know, show the artwork I've made with them. But yeah, that was something I really thought about this week, that while I'm, am I taking, and what is my relationship to the taking of the actual, earth? Because, in Oklahoma, sometimes I think of it's sort of Dust Bowl country, and it feels like everything was taken and ruined. And that's sort of the special thing about this little tiny part of that tall grass prairie that still exists. And it only exists because, nobody took from it too much. That little, last, they call it the last stand of tall grass prairie. And there's hardly any left. So I think that's, I don't know, it's up for conversation whether I, return these and go home and work with what I have in Oklahoma, because I have been working with the red clays in Oklahoma, which is a completely different palette. So yeah, I will keep working with the natural pigments for sure.
Great.
So sort of building a little bit off those last two questions, I guess, the not the encaustic stuff you did, but the kind of little tiny studies, is that style something you see taking with you? Doing more of those?
Yeah, probably so. I used to do so much stuff like that. That was just this tiny little rows of things. So that was sort of maybe a past self that sort of came back after like a 10-year sleep or something. So yeah, I would like to pick back up. I really, really enjoyed the feeling of making those pieces. So yeah.
Other questions at this point? Something I was wondering was, oh, sorry, was someone going to say something?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, hey, Borum. Yeah.
Hi. I think it's a very interesting thought, the combination of your fingerprints and the fingerprints of the land with the pigments. So that sort of combination is really very exciting to me.
Thank you. My friend Margaret had a similar observation. She described it as fingerprints of the land. So yeah, I enjoy that observation.
Something I was thinking about is you had mentioned sort of, I forget what term we came up for it. You've been stalking Mattfield Green. You've been lurking.
Oh yeah.
Lurking in Mattfield Green for a few years. I just wondered how much, I don't know, something about what you zeroed in on, and even just looking at it as a color palette, it's not the color palette that I think most people would take away from the Flint Hills, because you're looking at different things and you're looking at a different scale than, I don't know. It feels like maybe the initial thing that overwhelms you is just sort of vastness, but yours are all like you're in these little creek beds and these details and things. So I just wondered how much did sort of your perspective change over multiple visits to the place, and how much you think that has influenced where you ended up with things.
Yeah, I had driven through here so many times, and my son Asher, who's on the call, he and I stayed in an Airbnb a couple summers ago out here. It's something that really has captivated me continually about the Flint Hills, is how it is so different every season. It's just this like idyllic, beautiful green, and then in the winter, it's this almost like psychedelic, soft, neutral. And so I almost it's almost anticipating winter, because I know the grass will turn. And so I think some of my color palette, felt appropriate because I know what it will be looking like soon. So even though it's green, so green everywhere, I think coming here so much, I have an understanding of that seasonal kind of color palette. And I didn't want to come and just paint like green hills because I think it's so much more than just, you know, the green hills that you pass on I-35 on your way through to somewhere else. So yeah.
Thanks. Other questions?
Did Paula's other question get asked?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see that one. Yeah, did you end up doing anything with that blue-green pigment?
It was interesting because once it was mixed with a little bit of water, it was so much more gray. And I think what made it more blue-green was the sun and the light on it. And once it changed form, it sort of lost, or maybe it was on the white because you know how colors are affected by what's beside them. I think that that tone that was captured in the photo was like a magic made by the light and then what was around it kind of highlighting the blue greenness. But yeah, it was much less blue green upon application.
Right. There's a very Sean question from Sean. Do you think you were channeling a secret language from the fossils and stones? Oh, it's from Lori. Okay, a very Sean question from Lori. Maybe a very Lori question from Lori. Which I mean, is something I was thinking of too. That connection between those fossils and the cattle brands, I have a hard time believing that, like, you know, ranchers 100 years ago were like, let's base our cattle brands on these fossils. So that is a connection that is a very fascinating one. So yeah, do you think you're tapping into that? And the railroad too, with like if you've seen like the hobo markings of language. I mean, there's something with the railroad and travel too that looks sort of similar there.
Yeah, the markings. I don't know if I was channeling, but the day that I found all those fossils, I felt very weird. Everything about everything felt very weird. So yeah, and I had just kind of had this realization being here, you know, while I want to say, and I think I talked about this with Sean and Lori a little bit, or maybe mentioned it, but like, you know, coming here, it's like, oh, it's magical. But I had this realization the second day that's like, this isn't magic. There's nothing magic. This is like actual, you know, I'm not here because of magic. I'm here because I took an interest in the Flint Hills, you know, 4 years ago and have pursued coming here, and I applied. And the fossils aren't magic, you know, those happened with time. And the light is not magic. That's the sun on, you know, these tenacious grasses that have so much silica, they dull the teeth of the grasshopper. You know, it seems magic, but it is so just so much just like science and real things that can be explained. And I felt really grounded in that. And when I'm here, I want to learn about everything real, nothing magical, you know, geology and the wild, you know, edible plant things that my friend Paul, who's on the call right now, knows so much. And I've learned a lot this summer from Paul. And then my coworker Steve, who's also on here, we've had a summer of just like learning about all these plants. So coming here, there were things that I recognized, like ground cherries and you know, things that are edible that I learned this summer. And it's not magic at all. It's all, you know, explainable and related. And you don't get to see it very many places in the United States. It's like this little tiny special holdout of all these like really, really real things. So that's kind of something from this week.
Yeah. There's a question from Margaret that I'll just have to read word for word, or else I'm going to miss some of the depth here. But a lot of your previous work has oscillated between the micro and the macro. Do you see the work in its final stage leaning more towards one or the other? Or will the layered prints and marks do both?
Ooh, Margaret is so good. She asks such good questions. She knows She knows.
This is a 10-point essay right here. Yeah, none of
I know this is pinpoint. Margaret and I talk almost every day, and she's so. Oh, there she is. There's her face. Oh, she's gone. I kind of think like one can't be without the other. I feel like I can't explain the tiny without like pulling back. And one of the last pictures of my slideshow, I laid everything out on the ground, the tiny and then the landscapes. And I feel like they are inseparable, and it's hard. I would almost feel like self-conscious just showing one. It's like the balance is like tiny and then out and then tiny and then out. So I feel like I'm gonna just keep doing all of it. Good question, Margaret.
One of the things, obviously our motivation with the whole residency is one, that we are Flint Hills fanatics. We think it's great, and then we just like to find excuses to bring other people out to tell us that it's great, and then we all feel good together. But the bigger thing is sort of this, that hopefully there's something to sort of take home with it to, all the artists, or at least most of the artists, are in a place that has this prairie underneath somewhere, whether it looks suburban or different sort of ecologies that have grown up over them and things. But yeah, do you see, I don't know, what do you see taking back with you maybe, or what connections? Because really, you're basically straight south of here, right? Like,
yeah,
where there are some geological differences that cause some things, but really underneath it is a very similar strip of land here.
It is, but it all feels ruined. Like the more southern you get into like the center of Oklahoma. And I found myself with this like interesting feeling. And I don't know if it was like a feeling of mourning the loss of this kind of natural state of this plains area, and then feeling sort of angry about the whole Dust Bowl ecological disaster. So I thought a lot about the loss of all of this and how you don't, I don't know if I really have ever even identified myself as someone that lives in the plains region or thought about a tall grass or native grasses until just recently. Growing up in Oklahoma, a lot of it feels ruined, like around where I live. And there's this little spot I go to in Norman, the town that I live in, kind of by the river. And I started going there maybe, 5 years ago or something, just obsessively, and it was like the grassland area that would sort of captivate me. And so like on a foggy morning, I wake up, and if I have time to go out before the fog goes, I just feel like very intent on seeing that. So I forgot what your question was, but yeah, I just feel like the experience of the prairie is so different here. And I know there are places in Oklahoma where it's maybe like sneaking back up in fields, and there is a reserve area in Oklahoma, but yeah, when you come here and see areas that are unspoiled, you realize how much is spoiled, and then you kind of have to deal with the realization that like the millions of years it took to create this like perfect balance isn't going to come back as something we will ever see in our lifetimes. Yeah, I don't know. I forgot what your question.
There was a question, so I think you answered it. But yeah, just making that connection between, between different parts of the prairie region, and yeah, so it's perfect. Yeah, this just feels so different from Oklahoma. I don't know, but also I kind of live in the metro, so any sort of metro area is going to feel different than its kind of outlying areas. So yeah. We're getting close to an hour here, but yeah, if there are any other questions, I want to give a little space for those. Or Ruth, if you have any other secret thoughts that you've been withholding that you wanted to get out before the end?
No, I mean, I just want to express my gratitude to the Tall Grass Artist Residency team and to all of my friends and family. I feel like it was kind of a group effort. And my son for hanging out without me for the 9 days and being a good sport about it, and coworkers and new friends. I just feel a lot of gratitude, and thank you all for coming and chatting with me today.
Yeah, and we've I mean, one of the things that I think impressed me about you the other day when we were talking was just some people come with like a very I don't know, very like maybe head-based approach, like they're interested in the tall grass prairie for intellectual reasons, or some kind of theory or thing they want to research or study. And I mean, you definitely are researching, but I don't know, I liked how, yeah, you said it's all rational, there's a rational explanation for all of it, but I feel like there's a little bit of, or at least your observation brings some magic into it. You're seeing things that we're not seeing, even those of us who live here and spend a fair amount of time thinking about this. So yeah, I don't know, I just felt, and I liked that then you were working with clay, because it felt like you had a very experiential kind of embodied approach to the place, and yeah, I really appreciated that. So
Yeah, well, thank you.
great to have you. Sad to see you stay. There's no other artists coming, so maybe just like just camp out there, squat on the place, see if you can. No, it looks like there's some people on the call who want you back. So. Okay, we'll release you.
I will be back soon, and I drive through here quite a bit to see my friend Margaret and to deliver artwork to a gallery that I'm represented by in Kansas City. So I will find more than a few reasons to come back.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for a nice little visit on Sunday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully you're not entering into that time on Sunday where you start dreading Monday yet. Take a couple more hours, have some popcorn or something, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. But thanks so much for spending time with us. And thank you to Ruth.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. Thanks.